Hi and welcome to ReaperTV. In this week's video we're going to be taking a look at answering a question that was recently asked on the YouTube channel. The question was all about how does Reaper deal with multi-take recordings and freezing those individual tracks. So in this video I'm going to give you a brief overview of how freezing works. If you want to see more about that, there's a video dedicated to that and I'll link that in the description below. But we're going to be looking at it in specifically how it deals with the multi-track or multi-take recordings. So let's take a look at all that right now. So what is freezing tracks in Reaper? What does it actually do? Well, there are two things we can do. We can freeze tracks and we can render tracks. And what that effectively does is it takes all of the effects, the EQ, the different sound effects and things you use on a specific track, and then gets rid of those, applies them to the track, and kind of puts the track into a rendered state. So everything is applied to the underlying piece of audio, and all those effects then are kind of turned off. So you free up resources on your track. Now you can do this on an individual track, you can do it on every single track throughout your entire session, and obviously if you're dealing with slower computers, it's a great way of freeing up some valuable resources. Difference between rendering and freezing is rendering is a permanent one-way of working. So once you apply that render to it, that track is rendered, everything is applied to that track, and it becomes a permanent thing. That's great if you know you never want to make a change or you're outputting those stems to give it to someone so they can mix a final version of a track. But if you want to do that to free up resources with the ability to go back at a later date and make changes, so you can edit the EQ, you can change the patch you're using on your virtual amplifier, anything you want to do to it. If you use freeze tracks, what that does is it's totally non-destructive and you can reverse that. You can unfreeze the track and then all of the underlying elements, the effects and everything, and the original wave or the original MIDI, they're all still completely intact. So you can go back and you can make any changes and then you can refreeze it if you want to. So it's a nice way of working, it's a very non-destructive way of working. You get all the benefits of render with the added benefit of the fact that you can go back and freeze those tracks and make changes to all the underlying parameters. So I hope that kind of gives you an overview of what's happening with freezing tracks. So how does freezing tracks work if we've got multiple parts or multiple takes which we then sliced up and we've cherry-picked the best pieces? Well, if we take a look at the track I've got in front of me, which is part of an entire session, you can see that this is broken up into about seven or eight takes, and then I've cut the track up and we've used individual pieces of that to get the overall finished take that I want. So I've picked the best pieces out of it. So what will happen if we freeze that track? Well, let's take a look and see what happens. So we right click and we'll come down to the option for render and freeze tracks, and you can see we have a range of options available in there. I've covered these in the other video, which, like I say, I will link in the description below, so you can check that out if you want more information about it. But you can see we've got the option to either render tracks or freeze tracks. Now this is a mono track, it's a vocal, so I don't need to worry about stereo. So I'm going to come over and you see the options we have: freeze tracks to mono, stereo, or multi-channel. So we're going to choose the mono option. And that will then go through, it'll play the entire track at fast and real time, and it'll then render that entire track out. So you can see now, instead of all those multi-parts, we've now ended up with one take for that particular section. And you can see it applies to every other part of this track. So we can't render just a portion of it, we're rendering the entire track. However, it is on a track-by-track basis, so all of the other tracks that are in my session are all completely untouched. So there we go. So we've rendered that, or we've frozen that track out. So let's go back in now and let's unfreeze it and see how it deals with it. So we right click again, choose render freeze tracks, and we'll just choose unfreeze tracks. And as you can see, it says restore previous items and effects. So if we do that, it'll unfreeze that track for us. And as you can see, every single piece of that track, including all the effects, are all completely untouched and available to us. So as you can see, if you are working with multiple takes and you do freeze the track, you can unfreeze it and all of those takes are still in there. So if you find you want to come back in and make a change or an alteration to any of those takes and choose a different one, you can do that. Everything is completely non-destructive by using this method, which is a fantastic way of working. Like I say, all your resources are freed up then from the effects and everything else. Just a great way of working. Well, I hope that answered the question. I hope this has shown you how you can deal with freezing your tracks if you're dealing with multiple takes, and how it gives you the ability to easily go back in and edit anything on that track at any particular point, or simply unfreezing that frozen track. Well, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of our weekly content. Any comments, questions or feedback on this video or anything else covered on the channel, please pop those in the comments section below. And until next time, happy mixing.